There is a specific moment in life, and it often happens silently, without us even noticing it at first, when the furniture in your own home begins to turn against you. It starts with the chair you have sat in for years. Suddenly, standing up isn't a simple reflex anymore. It becomes a calculation. You find yourself rocking back and forth to generate momentum. You find your hand reaching out instinctively for the armrest, needing to push down just to lift yourself up. We often dismiss this. We call it slowing down. The medical community has a label for it: frailty. But if we are being honest with ourselves, it is actually the slow, quiet erosion of your freedom. It is the very first step toward losing your independence. For nearly 3 decades, my team and I have been obsessed with exactly this problem. We have dedicated our careers to muscle rehabilitation and the science of longevity. We asked ourselves a simple but radical question: is this decline inevitable, or is it a biological error that we can correct? To find the answer, we didn't just look at exercise, we looked at chemistry. We recently concluded an exhaustive 126-day study that was one of the most comprehensive of its kind. We stripped away the marketing hype and the flashy labels, and we went into the lab. We tested 932 different compounds. We looked at powders, extracts, peptides, amino acid blends, and plant-based compounds. If it was on a shelf or in a research paper, we tested it. Here is the hard truth that the supplement industry probably doesn't want you to hear. Most of them failed. In fact, 927 of those compounds did absolutely nothing significant for aging muscle tissue. They were, for all intents and purposes, expensive dust. They could not overcome the biological barriers that exist in a body over 60, but 5 of them worked. Out of nearly 1,000 candidates, only 5 specific powders demonstrated a measurable, clinically significant ability to restore muscle fibers, improve power, and rebuild strength in seniors. And the most fascinating part? These 5 compounds worked best when they were integrated into a daily ritual that most of you already do: your morning cup of coffee. Today, I am going to walk you through this protocol. I am going to explain exactly what these 5 powders are, why they work, and how they interact with your biology to turn back the clock on muscle aging. This isn't just about looking stronger. It is about ensuring that your 70s, 80s, and 90s are defined by capability, not dependency. Before we get to the list, however, we need to understand the enemy. You need to understand why your body has stopped listening to you. As we age, our internal environment shifts. When you are 20, your body is in a constant state of build. You eat protein, and your body readily converts it into muscle tissue. But after the age of 60, you develop a condition known as anabolic resistance. Think of your muscles like a radio. When you are young, the volume is turned all the way up. The signal is clear. But as you age, that volume knob gets turned down. You can eat the same amount of protein, do the same exercises, but your muscles literally cannot hear the signal to grow. On top of that, you have a protein in your body called myostatin. It acts as a genetic brake pedal. Its only job is to limit muscle growth. As we get older, that brake pedal gets pushed down harder and harder. So, the protocol we developed is not just about nutrition. It is about biohacking these mechanisms. We need to turn the volume back up, and we need to take your foot off the brake. Let's begin the countdown with compound number 5. Number 5 is perhaps the most misunderstood on the list because people confuse it with candy. I am talking about raw cacao powder. Now please listen carefully. I am not talking about the sugary, processed hot chocolate mix you buy at the grocery store. I am talking about raw, unprocessed, bitter cacao. Why did this make the top 5? Because raw cacao is one of the most potent sources of a specific flavonoid called epicatechin. In our study, epicatechin proved to be a game changer for one specific reason. It inhibits myostatin. Remember that brake pedal I just mentioned? The compounds in raw cacao help lift that foot off the brake. They signal to your body that it is safe to build tissue again. But it does something else just as critical. It is a powerful vasodilator. It relaxes the walls of your arteries, allowing blood to flow more freely. When you are older, your circulation naturally diminishes, which means your muscles aren't getting the oxygen and nutrients they need to repair themselves. By adding just 1 teaspoon of raw cacao to your coffee, you are essentially opening up the highways of your circulatory system. And you are ensuring that the fuel gets to the engine. In our trials, we saw improvements in hand grip strength, which is a major biomarker for overall longevity, in as little as 2 weeks. Let's move on to number 4. This one might seem the most unusual to add to coffee, but its biological impact is undeniable. Number 4 is beetroot powder. I know what you are thinking. Beets in coffee sounds unappealing, but beetroot powder, when processed correctly, has an earthy tone that blends surprisingly well with dark roast coffee. But we aren't doing this for the taste. We are doing it for the fast twitch fibers. You see, you have 2 types of muscle fibers. Type 1 is for endurance, like walking. Type 2 is for explosive power, the kind of strength you need to catch yourself when you trip or to stand up quickly. Unfortunately, Type 2 fibers are the first to die off as we age. When you lose these, you lose your stability. Beetroot powder is the answer because it is high in dietary nitrates. When you ingest these nitrates, your body converts them into nitric oxide. This molecule travels directly to your mitochondria, the microscopic power plants inside every one of your cells. It makes them more efficient. It is like cleaning the spark plugs in an old car engine. Suddenly, the firing is quicker, and the response is immediate. In our study, the group supplementing with beetroot powder showed a measurable improvement in leg power. They could generate force faster. This is critical for preventing falls. However, I must issue a small medical note here. Because beetroot is so effective at relaxing blood vessels, it can lower blood pressure naturally. If you are already on prescription medication for high blood pressure, please consult your doctor before adding this to your routine, as the combination could lower your pressure too much. Now, we move to the structural framework. Number 3 is hydrolyzed collagen peptides. If you think of your muscles as the engine, you must think of your tendons, ligaments, and fascia as the chassis and the transmission. Muscles do not float in empty space. They pull on bones via tendons. They are wrapped in a connective web called fascia. If this connective tissue is weak, brittle, or stiff, your muscle strength is irrelevant. You will be in too much pain to move. By the time you reach 60, your natural collagen production has plummeted. This is why you feel stiff in the mornings. This is why your knees click and your shoulders ache. We found that adding 10 to 15 grams of hydrolyzed collagen to hot coffee is the perfect delivery system. The heat dissolves the powder instantly. It becomes tasteless and textureless, but the effect on your body is profound. Collagen provides the specific amino acids, glycine, proline, and hydroxyproline, that your body desperately needs to repair that connective tissue. Over the course of 12 weeks, we saw seniors report significantly less joint pain and greater range of motion. Think of this as reinforcing the ropes and pulleys that allow your body to function. Without it, movement is a chore. With it, movement becomes fluid again. This brings us to number 2. This compound is the most researched supplement in the history of sports nutrition, yet it is arguably the most feared by the general public due to misconceptions. And number 2 is creatine monohydrate. For decades, marketing campaigns have told us that creatine is only for bodybuilders in tank tops looking to get bulky. That is a myth, and it is a dangerous myth because it keeps this essential nutrient away from the people who need it most. Seniors, creatine acts as a battery charger for your cells. It helps regenerate a molecule called ATP, which is the primary energy currency of your body. When you feel that deep, heavy fatigue in your legs when climbing stairs, that is often a depletion of phosphocreatine. But for the aging body, creatine offers a secondary, almost magic benefit. It acts as an osmolyte. This means it draws water into the muscle cell. We call this cell volumization. When a muscle cell is superhydrated and pressurized, it sends a powerful anabolic signal to the nucleus of the cell. It flips a genetic switch that says, "We are healthy, we are hydrated, protect this tissue." You do not need the massive doses that athletes take. We found that just 3 to 5 grams, about 1 teaspoon, dissolved in your warm coffee is sufficient. It is tasteless, odorless, and dissolves easily. After about 3 or 4 weeks of consistent use, you will feel a difference in your mental clarity and your physical stamina. It is the cheapest, safest insurance policy for muscle retention that exists, and it is high time we stopped fearing it. And finally, we arrive at number 1, the most critical component of the entire protocol. If you ignore everything else I have said today, please pay attention to this, because without this compound, the other 4 will not work effectively. This is the master key that unlocks the door to muscle growth. Remember earlier when I spoke about anabolic resistance, about how your muscles become deaf to the protein you eat? To fix that, you need a megaphone. You need a signal so loud that your body has no choice but to listen. That signal is an amino acid called leucine. The problem with your standard breakfast, your toast, your eggs, or even your regular protein shake, is that they simply do not contain enough leucine to trigger the muscle-building mechanism in an older body. A 20-year-old only needs a tiny amount of leucine to start building muscle. A 70-year-old needs nearly triple that amount to get the same effect. Our clear winner, the most effective compound we tested out of all 932, was a leucine-enriched essential amino acid powder. Specifically, you are looking for a blend that provides at least 3 grams of pure leucine per serving, along with the other 8 essential amino acids. When you take this in the morning, especially on an empty stomach with your coffee, it rushes into your bloodstream. Because it is a free-form powder, it requires almost no digestion. It hits the muscle tissue and flips the switch from decay to growth. It forces the body to synthesize new protein. In our study, this was the only compound that successfully overcame anabolic resistance completely. It is the spark that lights the fire. Now, you might be wondering, why coffee? Why do I have to put all of these into my morning brew? Can't I just drink them with water? You certainly could. But you would be missing out on the final piece of the puzzle: synergy. Coffee is a potentiator. The caffeine in coffee does more than just wake up your brain. It increases your metabolic rate slightly and, more importantly, improves microcirculation. It acts as a rapid delivery vehicle, shuttling these nutrients, the leucine, the creatine, the nitrates, the flavonoids, to the tissues faster and more efficiently than water alone. Furthermore, there is the factor of compliance. We are creatures of habit. You are likely going to drink your coffee every morning, regardless of what else happens in your day. By stacking this protocol onto an existing habit, you ensure consistency. And in the world of biology, consistency is everything. You cannot do this once a week and expect results. It must be a daily signal to your body. I want to take a moment to manage your expectations. We live in a world that promises overnight miracles, but biology is slow. This protocol is not a magic pill. If you drink this tomorrow, you will not wake up looking like a superhero. You have to play the long game. Here is what you can expect. During the first few weeks, you might just feel a little more alert. You might notice you have a bit more energy in the afternoons. By week 4, you will likely notice that your joints ache a little less and you feel more hydrated inside your muscles. By week 8, things start to get interesting. You might notice you aren't as winded walking up a flight of stairs. You might notice that carrying the groceries feels lighter. But by week 12, that is when the magic happens. That is when the cumulative effect of these 5 powders really takes hold. That is when you realize you just stood up from that deep armchair without rocking back and forth. You stood up without thinking about it. That moment, that effortless movement, is what we have been fighting for. That is the return of your independence. We spent 30 years and millions of dollars in research to find out that the secret to a strong, independent old age isn't hidden in a pharmaceutical lab or a complex surgery. It is found in nature, refined by science, and sitting right there in your morning cup. Your legs are your lifeline. They are the only things standing between you and the nursing home. Treat them with respect, feed them what they need, and keep them strong.